where do I even begin with this one? So after the first game, Square Enix was highly confident that they were going to get a sequel, but before Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, we got this game, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. This game was a very odd one because not only is it, canon to the story, but this bitch was on the Game Boy Advance. I don't blame anybody for skipping out on this because most of them didn't even know it fucking existed, nor did they really even think that it was important to begin with. Many people must have just thought that this was just a minor spin-off, but no, this was a major connection to Kingdom Hearts 2, and if you wanted to understand Kingdom Hearts 2, you had to play this game. So what the fuck happened? Why exactly did they have to go to the Game Boy Advance instead of the PlayStation 2, which the first game established itself on? I don't fucking know, I'm not your fucking Grandpa Joe. Eventually though, we did get a console release on the PS2 with Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Honestly, this should have been the game that we got if they really wanted us to play it, but whatever, we got the HD remasters now, so might as well play it now, I guess, right? Everybody has their own reasoning for why they skipped out on this game, but as for the reason why I skipped out on it, was because of its main gimmick, which I'll talk about later. Again, I don't blame anybody for wanting to skip out on this game, but at the very least, you should at least watch the cutscenes, that way you get a good grip as to what's supposed to happen for Kingdom Hearts 2. But with that said, let's get started with Kingdom Hearts Chain of Bullshit. So after defeating Ansem in the last game, Sora, Donald, and Goofy, with the help of Riku, close Kingdom Hearts and the gang gets separated yet again from Riku while restoring Destiny Islands, leaving Kairi safe. The gang then walk a lonely road, the only one that they have ever known. We're not even 5 minutes into this and I'm already making a Green Day joke, fuck my life. The crew find Pluto and follow him until night falls, and since Pluto is a big fat dildo, Sora loses track of him and rests for the night. He wakes up to see this man in a black coat and follows him to a castle named Castle Oblivion, and right then and there I would have ran away and cried like a little bitch that I am. But since Sora is not a bitch like me, he ends up staying. And I don't know what the fuck happened, but Sora apparently went through puberty as his voice went from a young Haley Joel Osment to after puberty Haley Joel Osment.
No, this huge black thing swallowed me up. I couldn't breathe, Ow.
Seriously? Me too. One look at this castle, and I just knew. Our very best friends. They're here.
Mickey actually has a valid reason for this.
Somebody say my name?
Yeah, that was me. Could you just explain to these people, why Sora sounds this way all of a sudden?
Oh, you want me to talk about that? Oh, gladly.
Great.
Oh yeah, before Ansem died, he kicked Sora so hard in the balls that they dropped.
That's Mickey, ladies and gentlemen. The cloaked figure phases through Sora, and just like that, he loses all of his abilities he learned in the first game, along with Donald and Goofy, because bullshit plot convenience. The figure goes on to tell Sora that basically the more he travels through the castle, the more he forgets things, but also gains new memories in the process, which are actually false memories. Sora is then handed a card with a completely ridiculous and illogical means of catching, like really, your reflexes must be 200% accurate, like holy fuck. The card is made from Sora's memories, and guess what? It's Traverse Town, and the people in this world don't know who Sora is because they're merely just illusions created from this memory. However, Aerith then tells Sora that even though they don't remember him and vice versa, they still feel a connection anyway due to Sora's heart, but the other Disney worlds act like they never fucking met, making this game way more redundant than the first. Speaking of Aerith though, look, I said it before, but god damn, Aerith is just the whole package. Seriously, I am not joking, I'm jumping through my goddamn monitor and I'm diving deep into that ass. I'm so sorry, I actually can't believe I wrote that. While going through other worlds or memories, Sora forgets more and more, but is then remembered of this girl named Naminé. We're then greeted by another man named Axel, who is a blessing by the gods, I swear. We then get into a fight with him, and after defeating him, Axel offers to help Sora, but he ultimately decides to help himself, choosing his own path rather than Axel's. Watching over this is not only Axel, but Larxene, in which is revealed that they're part of an organization, which is actually Organization 13, but we don't know that yet, so shit. The Cloaked Man turns out to be a man named Marluxia, who is hell-bent on using Naminé to fuck with Sora's memories, and in turn shatter his heart so Marluxia and Larxene can use him to take over the organization. Axel at first seems to be on Marluxia's side, but it's quite clear that he's just acting as a double agent for the actual organization. Axel is seen working with Larxene and Vexen, which Larxene is a straight up bitch, and Vexen is a scientist, and as such creates a replica of Riku, who I swear is the worst character in Kingdom Hearts! If you thought Kingdom Hearts 1 Riku was bad, this dude encapsulates everything wrong with him and everything that made him suck in the first one and cranks it up times 10! It's not enjoyable in the slightest, and all it makes me want to do is tell him to shut the fuck up so that way I can beat the fucker up! Look, this Riku is comprised of Naminé's powers and is then trained to think that he needs to protect her from anyone, including Sora, and is mainly served as a test for the organization to use, and as such, is nothing more than an empty husk to test Sora's strength. No matter what though, Sora wins all the time, and so this Riku just sounds like a whiny bitch who needs to get his face kicked in, that's all I'm saying. And the rest of the story is just summed up as Sora goes to each world within his memories, re-meet the character already met in Kingdom Hearts 1 with the same motivations except for Belle and Beast, and beat any baddie in the world just like the first game. No matter what though, I can't help but be even more uninterested with these Disney worlds because they're literally just the same as their original counterparts in Kingdom Hearts 1, and as a result, make them way less interesting than they originally were to begin with. Sora, in the meantime, in Castle Oblivion, keeps getting these images of Naminé and believes that she was a resident on Destiny Islands along with Riku and Kairi. Naminé starts fucking with Sora's memories as stated earlier, and soon he forgets about Kairi and believes that he himself should protect Naminé because he remembers a promise to her, but we all know that's bullshit. Marluxia ends up asking Axel to eliminate Vexen, and it's such a funny cutscene, I swear to God.
You're off the hook.
No! Please don't! I don't want to!
Goodbye.
Axel especially sticks out as a character because it's shown that he does have good intentions with not wanting to destroy Sora or use him as a tool for the organization. He may just be the best character in this whole story, which isn't saying much considering that Sora himself is a bit of a dumbass. There's no teenage drama like the first game, thank God, but Sora doesn't seem to have this thing known as common sense. Tell me this. Would you go into a dark castle because you had a feeling someone you knew was in there? Would you stay if you found out that its name is Castle Oblivion and the more you stay, the more memories you forget? Would you even follow a man in a black coat? No, you wouldn't, and that's my problem with Sora. Now that Naminé's in the middle of this, Sora doesn't at all question why he's never remembered her at all, even before the events of this game, and just now thinks about her. Which yes, Donald and Goofy do tell him that, but he just becomes a brat afterwards. Now I do understand where Sora's coming from. Honestly, I'm surprised the kid can take so much torment without just breaking down because holy shit, the organization don't give a fuck about how he feels, and it's just sad for all the wrong reasons. Sora goes on to destroy organization member Larxene and then climbs to the next floor. Sora then takes on Marluxia, who found out that Axel had freed Naminé and calls him out for being a traitor. But Axel Uno reverse cards the pretty boy and calls him out for being a traitor himself for wanting to use Sora's power. Axel then fights Sora because Axel doesn't have a problem destroying Naminé if it means getting his hands on Marluxia. Sora ends up the victor and then finds Naminé and seems to take a disliking to her at first for essentially brain fucking the guy, but does forgive her because even though his memories are fake, he still made a promise regardless and forgives her. He's then stopped by Recoup Replica again and fights Sora one last time, but at the end Recouplica, which is just what I'm gonna call him because it just sounds better, ends up wanting to help Sora strictly to protect Naminé from Marluxia. And he doesn't do jack fucking donkey shit in the fight, so take your useless ass to the dumpster, you terrible piece of trash who's worse than a fucking white rabbit. Sora defeats Marluxia and is then taken by Naminé to a chamber in which Sora must sleep in to restore his memories, but will have no memory of anything that's really happened. Essentially, Sora takes a hard reset, so all the events that just happened, at least to Sora, never happened. Yep. Essentially, just to Sora himself, all the events that just happened in Castle Oblivion, at least what he went through, doesn't mean anything to him, but is still really important considering the other cast of characters. With Naminé watching over him, restoring his memories, and Jiminy's journal written to say thank Naminé, Sora rests peacefully awaiting his awakening for Kingdom Hearts 2. Sora's not the only one in on all the action, as Riku also has a campaign of his own that goes on at the same time as Sora's. Riku himself has been stuck in the realm of darkness after closing the door to Kingdom Hearts, and is then instructed by this voice in his head which takes him to the same world again, and his story is just his struggle with darkness. This mystery voice turns out to be Ansem, but not really since it's merely an illusion. This Ansem is actually a man named Diz, and it'll only get more confusing from here onwards. Trust me, we got a long way to go with that storyline. Riku eventually accepts darkness as a power and uses it to vanquish Ansem, and with the help of King Mickey, travels onwards after realizing that Sora's okay, and goes to learn more about this so-called organization. He doesn't fully choose darkness though, nor does he choose Twilight or the light side, but more so, he just takes the road to dawn, which is a little dramatic, but fuck it, who cares? A small story, but I'd say a good reward for completing Sora's campaign, and is worth a playthrough, I'll be honest here. As Riku, you meet two more organization members, which were Zexion and Lexius. Now, with the organization members I've met in this game, I could say that Vexen is a scientist, Lexius is your typical strong brute, Zexion has a hard-on for encyclopedia bullshit, Axel's the fucking best, Marluxia's probably gay, and Larxene is a mantis hand-headed bitch, but I'm curious what's under that robe. One thing that I've noticed is that there are ranks with Vexen being number 4, but still takes orders from Marluxia, who's number 11 supposedly? I don't get it, but it seems like the ranks don't mean jack shit to these guys except for number 1. It is explained that since this is Castle Oblivion, Marluxia is the head master of it, which may be the reason why Vexen actually takes orders, but I don't know, man. I think as number 4, you should have more responsibility than number 11. Not a lot of personality to these guys, except for Axel and Larxene, but to be fair, I don't really care for the other members anyway, but I do see them as cool villains nevertheless. Now, you guys probably realize that I mentioned Naminé a few times without exactly going into depth of who she is, and this is where things get even more complicated. Remember when Kairi fell into a coma and phased through Sora in the first game? Yeah, apparently at the time she lost her heart and it rested inside Sora's. After Sora released her heart from his heart, it created its own entity, creating Naminé. Naminé is the nobody of Kairi, and the magic memory powers comes from Kairi's connection to Sora, hence why Naminé also looks like Kairi. The organization members themselves are also nobodies who lost their hearts in the past life, but since their hearts were so strong-willed, their hearts, instead of becoming heartless, created its own entity but has no real emotions. If you think this is the most confusing part of the story, you're way off. It'll only get worse, and this all happens first on the Game Boy Advance, and after telling you the story, you should understand how important it is, which makes it all bullshit this wasn't originally on the PlayStation 2. Going back to the Disney worlds again, were incredibly downplayed here. The worlds were already essentially meaningless to the actual story, but here, there's no reason for them to actually be here. Sora's just going through memories of the same Disney worlds from the first game, and even when we played them, he forgets them instantly when he goes up to the next floor, making them completely useless in the long run, and it's all just not worth being here. I mean, we have Twilight Town and Castle Oblivion, but other than that, there's nothing new here. In terms of the actual story though, it's not all terrible. Yes, some characters make odd choices and the real important things happen in Riku's story while Sora's story is just exposition. One distracting thing is the way the characters' faces are sometimes. This was apparent in the first game, but it was the first, so I let it slide. Here though, this game came out after Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2 if you're playing, you know, Rechain of Memories on the PS2. So what the hell happened? Do you know how redundant it actually is and distracting to see the characters' faces come from static faces to like instantly full-fledged rendered cutscenes? It doesn't make any freaking sense. It's so dumb and it happens all the time in this game. At first you'll see Sora with this boring static face and then you'll see him in a full rendered face, and it's distracting. Besides that though, I think that the story is just fine, and I think you guys will find enjoyment out of it if you pay attention enough. Now obviously, since this is basically just a rehash of the first game, they had to change the gameplay up a little bit, and My god, they certainly changed it a bit. The picture on the cover doesn't lie. This game runs on cards, and not just the world cards needed to go to the next world, but you fight with cards. Each card runs on a specific value ranging from 1 to 9, but there's also the 0 card. 9 is the strongest value, but 0 is also because if you use it correctly, you can cancel out a high value attack no matter what, but if you use it, enemies could easily break your card, leaving it essentially useless. There are these things called slights which stack the cards into 3 rows and gives them more power, and sometimes could lead you to use abilities such as Stun Impact or Strike Raid. There are also these enemy cards or black cards which give you certain perks during the match that you're in, which can be pretty damn useful. The only bad side is that, well, they take up a lot of CP and you can only get them through bosses. Personally, I've never used a single one of these cards, but I know a lot of enthusiasts out there use these cards a lot, so by any means, if you find them useful, use them. Slights, however, like I said, are stacked cards, but be warned because if you decide to use slights, the first card you use will no longer be reloadable unless you've got an elixir or high potion or anything really that can get your cards back. Premium cards, however, will never come back unless the battle is over, so use them wisely. In fact, don't even use them because I don't even think there's any perks to them in the first place. Like, as far as I'm concerned, there's been no boost in strength, magic, or anything, so just try to avoid the premium cards, or somebody please explain to me what they are. Other cards you could obtain are character cards, which could be either the Genie or Cloud, for example, which, to be honest, I mainly just use Cloud. He just does so much more. If you think you could just stack your deck, well, you can't because you need card points like I said earlier, which you get by leveling up. Yeah, no, instead of raising abilities in general by leveling up, you choose between either HP, CP, or slights whenever you level up. I feel that's bullshit, but giving credit where credit is due, leveling up is never an issue since most of the time you need to grind anyway to get these map cards. The way these worlds are used are like these maze-like structures which were designed for the Game Boy Advance, and it shows. You need a specific valued map card in order to navigate, and if you touch a Heartless, you get sent to the exact same battle layout of that world. There's red, blue, and green map cards, and each color can be different, with red giving you Heartless, blue giving you shops or save points, and green gives you card advantages. Now, in most cases, the card gameplay is either a great time or a literal flick to the dick. In most cases, like the Ursula boss fight, which sucks cow tits in both campaigns, you have to be very careful when using slights because if you don't have any potions, then you're going to have a very tough time, and I mean very tough time, and you may not even be able to fight at all because of this. This can get really irritating, especially when you eventually do have to grind because the fights can get really boring. It's always the same with very little improvement, and it just doesn't interest me at all. I was already drained out by Sora's campaign, but Riku's just got more annoying. Riku is a different ballgame from Sora since he's limited to whatever cards the worlds give him. And like I said about that Ursula fight, Riku's fight with her is the worst considering your limited space as well as Trick Master. Seriously, that dude sucks with Riku. Riku also doesn't have any healing abilities other than Mickey, who will sometimes heal you and sometimes not, so watch out for that shit. Riku also has this dark form which gives increased strength and slights that'll fuck up any boss, and don't let that fool you as the bosses can get really fucking hard, especially that fucking Vexen fight! Riku's campaign doesn't last that long at all either. In fact, it should only take you around 12 hours, which is pretty damn short for a Kingdom Hearts game. Going back to Sora, though he doesn't have Donald and Goofy always by his side, at times they're turned into cards themselves. Goofy is able to use his Goofy Tornado, which is awesome, and Donald uses his magic, which can cure you, mind you, but he doesn't give a fuck about who you're fighting. Donald, I know damn well you did not just try to use ice on the ice guy. Now, I know everything I just said about the cards sounds like a lot, but it's really not. At times, I really like switching cards out to make room for better ones, but the game besides that just bores me. No matter how many times the cards work for me or not, I'm just not fascinated enough with them to actually give a shit. They work just fine for what they are, but these fuckers are the sole reason I even dropped the game to begin with. I stopped playing at fucking Traverse Town. Now, I know people would say to keep playing a little bit longer and maybe I'll find enjoyment out of it, but I did, and I still don't give a shit. I'm still doing what I did in Kingdom Hearts 1, and no cards are going to change that for me, no matter how unique they are in any way possible. There's not even a point to do a level rundown because it's the same world as before with some exceptions. The only ones worth talking about are 100 Acre Wood, Twilight Town, and Castle Oblivion. I didn't mention 100 Acre Wood in the first game because it was strictly a bonus which had no impact on the game whatsoever, but here, it's mandatory. It's just bonus games to play and they're alright for what they are, but the world can be on the boring side since nothing happens here. Twilight Town is different, yes, but I'd like to be in a space where I can run around freely without being in a confined room, and the same goes for Castle Oblivion. In the long run, well, what can I say? Chain of Memories is a working, full-fledged game and it tried something new which I respect, but it just didn't sit well with me. It plays well, does what it's supposed to do, and it does it well, but it's not for me. This has definitely been a shorter review compared to the first one, but there's so little for me to actually say, except now I actually play through the damn thing, so there's that, I guess. Chain of Memories is a working game and everyone should play it at least once, but I'm never touching this game again. I'm gonna give Chain of Memories a 5.5 out of 10. So, that leaves us down... Whew. Sometimes I hate taking that coat off. But that leaves us down one game, and now the next thing that we're looking at is Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, and well, since I'm reviewing all this off the story so far, you're only going to be seeing the cutscenes, but as I mentioned in the first review, I have played the game, so I will give snippets of what I actually thought of the game in general, but we're mostly just going to be looking at the analysis of the story and nothing more. But with that said, guys, I'll see you guys in the next review with 358 over 2 days, and I'll see you guys then. Peace out.